When my husband inherited the place, somebody once said to him, "I hope you enjoy your life's tenancy at the farm," because it's not a question of owning stuff and, you're just custodians, you're looking after the land, and we decided we wanted to look after it in a different way. Hello, my name's Jane Hulton-Harrop and I am lucky enough to live at Pollardine farm. I live in the farmhouse and enjoy being in this valley all the time, so I hardly ever go out, and I think I've been very lucky to have such a life here. So been here since 1985 actually, and farmed for 35 years with Roger, my husband. I was a science teacher in a secondary school, and I'd had a little small holding, so I was into animals and goats and cats and dogs and even sheep. So when I met Roger, it was just the most amazing opportunity. He was an amazing man, very, very kind, and so we decided that we would farm together, and within 6 months I'd quit my job and I was working with him, and I worked with him as long as possible. We always worked together. We had 2 beautiful children, Tom and Lizzie, and we just all went round together as a 4. So if we had to go and feed the cattle, they had to come, and that's the way they grew up really. So
I'm Lizzie Hulton-Harrop. I farm at Pollardine in partnership with my mum Jane and my fiance Rob. Pollardine is an upland farm. We're about 1,100 feet above sea level, and we're in the Shropshire Hills National Landscape, and we're just adjacent to the Stones National Nature Reserve. I think one of the most helpful things about growing up at Pollardine with mum and dad is there was never any pressure on Tom or I becoming farmers in the future. So we were never expected to take on the responsibility of the farm. It would always be here if we were interested, but we were very much encouraged to go away and forge our own way in the world and find out what else was out there. So we both left home at 18, we went to university, and then we started our careers away from the farm. And I'd always been very passionate about the charity sector, so I was working in London for a charity called The Big Give, which is an online donation platform. And then sadly, in around 2012 onwards, my dad became quite poorly. So my mum took the really tough decision then to sell all the livestock we had at the time and a lot of the handling equipment, and then all of the grassland was let out on annual grazing licenses. So that meant that all of our neighbours put their sheep and cattle on the farm, and we were still responsible for the infrastructure and the upkeep, but all of the grazing and grassland management was then outsourced on an annual basis. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to come home from London for a 3-month period, so I could take a sabbatical, learn a bit more about the farm, but then also spend some time with my dad. But very sadly during that time was actually when my dad died. So I then wanted to stay at Pollardine and see what mum and I could do together. And I think when we had a bit more capacity back on the farm then, we were thinking actually we could do something quite interesting together. And that was around 2018 where I think there was a lot more talk and momentum towards nature-friendly farming. I think regenerative agriculture was becoming more of a buzzword, and that really caught our attention. And we were excited to see what we could do at Pollardine to create a sustainable family farm, a profitable family farm, but one that would also deliver ecological benefit.
We wanted the soil to come back and the hedgerows and everything to flourish. Everything didn't need to be neat and tidy and tightly grazed, and the hedges didn't need to be all cut flat and low. So we just took on a different attitude towards the ground that we had, and very much felt responsible that we had to look after the land. We decided quite sensibly, I think, that infrastructure was really important if we were going to make a success. We set out that we wanted to have cattle that could outwinter, that would do really well on grass alone, so we weren't having to buy in additional implements. We didn't want to routinely treat anything or have any vaccinations. Wanted them to be able to bring a calf every year and thrive in this environment that we have here at Pollardine. So
we came across a chap called Rob Havard, who I'm now very lucky to call my fiance. And yeah, we went to visit him and saw his system down in Worcester and loved what he was doing, thought that was exactly the direction that we wanted to go in. Unfortunately, at that time, he didn't have any cattle for sale, but he was talking about buying some cattle himself from a breeder in Scotland. So we all three of us went to Scotland together, spent lots of time in the car chatting away, and so we always say our meeting story was cow shopping, which we always think is quite fitting. So Mum and I bought 15 pedigree Aberdeen Angus cows that all came with a calf at foot, and we're in calf as well, and they were introduced here at Pollardine in November 2022. And then we implemented a lot of what we'd learned through our holistic management training. So we decided the area of grass that they should have for however many days. If that was smaller than the field size, then we would use electric fencing and portable water troughs to be able to divide up the fields, do lots of monitoring, so try and make sure we were going in the intended direction and collect all this data on what we were doing. And that's been really interesting. That was the starting point. And now, 3 years later, working with Rob as well, and now we've joined our herds together. So we've got a group of 83 cows and heifers at Pollardine with the calves that they had earlier this year, and also 4 bulls. So it's exciting to see that we have a much bigger number of animals now and how well they're doing.
One of our key focuses here is to build resilience for the future. It's not just about building resilience in terms of the soil and the environment, but also for the business as well. And we find all of those things are actually interlinked. So if we get really good infiltration of water into the soil, it means wet winters we can keep cattle out. But we need to have soil structure and we need to have the right species for that. And the reason we need to establish this, and it takes time, is because it's the way things are going politically, there's more and more challenges, particularly on family farms. And so if we can use the grants that are available now to make the farm as resilient as possible, it means that in the future, if there is no subsidy and if there is no environmental payments for environmental management, then we know that the farm will be able to stand up and make money and still have a high enough stocking rate whilst keeping costs low. And that allows us to have a low risk system that can still produce plenty of really good food for people. To us, success will be the cattle thriving in this environment, producing healthy animals, healthy calves that are thriving here, giving us a great product to sell to people, but us having the confidence, the way we make our living here is also enhancing and building on our environment as well. If I had to describe Pollardine in one word, I think it would be potential. There's so much potential here to improve the grazing, and it's already good. And there's so much potential here to use the other areas of the farm, like the woodlands and the hill, to maximise what we can do for the environment and the farm. And I think potential is what this farm really has, and I can't wait to realise it.
It's the air, it's the freedom to be out and about, either walking or now more on my bike. It's the views, it's every day looks different. You never see the same thing twice. When it's pouring with rain, I like to go out and smell the grass, and it is a constantly changing environment, and I just feel very, very lucky to live in such a beautiful, complex place.